Is meal timing important? Another part of nutrition that people seem to go on the extreme side of it. So there's extremists that are all for it and extremists that are all against it. And again, another thing where it's like, you're both kind of wrong because there's positives and negatives, and it's about finding out what's fitting best. So there are definitely positives to meal timing. There's definitely better results in some aspects to spreading out your meals over time. There is even more aspects in that when you take it into consideration for the general public. But overall, in terms of progress, when it comes to weight loss, which is generally when this question is asked, or when it comes to keeping your body healthy, it's not hugely important, and it's also probably not going to be a big enough factor for everyone to take into consideration. And so I understand why people will post stuff about it and say it's not important. Some say so long as you stick to calories, but I'd say so long as you stick to at least macros, or better yet, actual quality food. Where it happens in the day is not going to drastically change those factors in your diet. And adding structure to your diet and consistent meals throughout the day might be hard for some people. So then if that's the case, maybe you need to take away from it. But I think a lot of people that say, it doesn't matter about meal timing, they're just taking away all the advantages that meal timing have. They should say that, if you can't handle it, then your meal timing isn't going to be so important. What's important is doing what you can do. So people are generally awake in the normal hours of the day, 8 o'clock to 8 o'clock is the typical we're awake and we're active hours. Now, ideally, you're active hours. So it's going to be more efficient for more people to eat consistently throughout that day. If you're consistently active, your body's consistently asking for energy, it's going to be good to have structured meals throughout the day. Why? Just simple for hunger, for energy levels. When it comes down to particular macros involved, carbohydrates, for example, if they're just anywhere sporadically throughout your day, so are your blood sugar levels. If your blood sugar levels are up and down, your energy is going to be up and down and crash. And that's when you're going to rely more on caffeine. Or if you're not doing so well, you're going to jump into more carbs and fall out of that diet. And so then I would argue that yes, having carbohydrates structured in an even way throughout the day is going to keep that blood sugar level balanced better, going to keep your energy output better, and going to keep you feeling better, and again, stick to the plan better. So that's another aspect. Protein helps with hunger. But if you keep that spread throughout the day rather than having it in huge chunks as well, again, that consistency is going to be there, you're going to feel a lot better, you're going to stick to the plan a lot better, and you're going to have less chance of cheating. So those aspects are not even including too much science involved in it. It's just including the fact that if you spread it out, you're going to be more adherent. So for most people, if you can spread those meals out, you will have a better result than if you don't. And that's simply said. When it comes to the more controversial topic, it would be more like, is it important to spread your protein out? And so this gets argued that no, it's not. As long as you get enough protein in the day, it stays in your blood and you get the recovery. And so, okay, well, that's somewhat true. And again, like I said at the start, to most people, as long as you get the right amount of protein, then you're probably going to get the best results you can get. But most people in general are not seeking the best possible results out of food. If you're somebody who's wanting the best possible results in muscle growth, then yes, spreading your protein out equally throughout the day is going to get you better results. The reason behind that, which is actually proven and actually tested and has a dominant thing, I know everyone says do research, and so if you actually do the research, it's hard to find something that's proven to work. And that's just because even when people do get results, like L-carnitine's a great example of this, they get results that only show you about 20% of people got a positive result from it. 20%. So is that really an effective supplement? Because if only 20% got the result, 80% didn't. So at what point do you call it effective? And they just say that it can be effective, and then they sell it. And so it's easy enough to do that, and so that's why sometimes research can fail. However, with protein, it's succeeded big time, and that's because everybody's different. So depending on your size of muscle in particular, and how hard you may train will dictate how much protein you need. Now, in that same sense, that certain amount of protein at those timings causes an anabolic spike in the muscle. Now, when it comes to a deficit, if you're in a deficit overall, you are at risk of losing that muscle, and we've talked about that before. So constantly, if you're in a risk of losing that muscle, you want to try to keep your muscle anabolic as much as possible for as long as possible. You eat enough protein at that one time and you cause that spike. That sort of lasts anywhere between 2 to 4 hours. And so that's why that sort of window of interval of eating has been around about the 3-hour mark. If you try to eat a high protein meal every 3 hours, you keep that protein synthesis going. That's what I mean by anabolic, you keep that protein synthesis going. So as long as you get all branched chain amino acids and amino acids in there, you're going to start growing effectively. And so this is why instead of having huge hits of protein, say either side of the day, more so when you're in that deficit, if you spread out that right amount of protein for your size and for your muscle throughout the day, you're going to get better growth response over time. Within a few days or a week, no, you're not going to notice shit. But over the course of 3, 4, 5 months, yes, if 2 people were the exact same and one of them had their protein at 2 either sides of the day, huge amounts, and another person had, say, spread out 4 or 5 meals in a day, that person will have better growth. But in all honesty, your body's very adaptive, and so regardless of how you structure your diet, regardless of where you put foods, eventually your body gets good at going with that. So it's always important to change things up. The whole reason you can't stand a deficit forever and you can't stand a surplus forever is because of that adaptation thing. But having many meals throughout the day causes that insulin sensitivity to go down, even if it doesn't involve carbohydrates. So when you're looking at long-term dieting, you want to take into consideration that yes, you will achieve great results spreading that out. But after a longer period of time, maybe you want to look at starting to introduce some days where you eat less meals just to get that balance back out. Maybe you want to look at even doing potentially fasting short term, or even just taking time off those larger meals and also bringing your training down to match, to have sort of like a recovery period. That would be your long-term dieting though. That, we're talking over 3 months at least. So that's why I love the methods between calorie cycling and carb cycling, because it keeps that process going a lot longer. It keeps your body from adapting to whatever you're doing too quickly or too dramatically.